Nancy Snow is a professor of public diplomacy at Kyoto University of Foreign Studies. She joins us now from Tokyo. Thank you for joining us. The first thing I'd like to know is, can the new sanctions realistically make any kind of impact?
They might, but of course we've got to be very patient here. I think we would all like to see some immediate change on the part of the DPRK. But that's unlikely. They sound as if they're more emboldened than ever, and they see this as an act of economic warfare. I think it's important as we go through this process, this ongoing conflict with North Korea, to see it from the point of view of Pyongyang. Not that we have sympathy so much for the regime, but rather it is going to continue to have a worse effect on the people of North Korea, the 25 million souls who live under this regime. And if there is some provision for humanitarian aid, all the better. I'm actually feeling pretty good about the way that China has cast this in terms of being an opportunity for dialogue and for a peaceful resolution in the peninsula. I'd like to believe that, again, because I sit here in Tokyo, and we'd all like to have that type of resolution, especially this time of year and before a very long winter to come without the necessary energy resources that they need.
Well, you mentioned China there. It's an ally of North Korea's, but of course one that has supported the sanctions. Some people have suggested that China is maybe playing two sides of this conflict off on each other. How much do you agree with that?
Well, I've studied international relations almost 3 decades, and countries are very good, China's no exception, at playing both sides. So China wants to come out in favor of being a good guy here. It got what it wanted out of the sanctions. In other words, they weren't quite as severe as the Trump administration wanted. And both China, of course, and Russia signed on to this. I think it'll be interesting to see in the North Korean reaction. They very quickly targeted the United States. So North Korea still wants to make this a conflict with its ardent enemy since the 1950s. That's a little harder to do now. But yes, China has had a very great concern about the possibility of massive refugees on their border. And they will probably be doing some negotiations on their own. And we have to just see how this plays out into 2018. We don't really know what North Korea's behavior will be. Right now, we just have the rhetoric, and it is the expected rhetoric of condemnation of these latest sanctions.
Well, if the sanctions don't work, this latest round, that is, do you think the prospect of conflict is realistic?
I think it's somewhat realistic. There are certainly people in Washington who would like to go ahead and try to have some type of limited strike on the nuclear capabilities of North Korea. That's very troubling to hear, but it's being banted, it's being discussed as a possibility. And I don't know how we could possibly limit such a strike without the possibility of a retaliation that would be very, very destructive. But I really hope that cooler heads will prevail here and that we can get away from some of this emotional outbursts. As I said earlier, I was somewhat relieved to hear China saying that this was a tool to continue dialogue. And even recently, of course, Rex Tillerson, the State Department secretary in Washington, before he pulled back on that, he said the very same thing, that we can go to the table without any preconditions. Listen very closely to what North Korea says, though. They view this in terms of deterrence. They want to be part of the international community of nuclear powers. I don't think that they're going to pull back from that anytime soon. So we have to be patient and allow our rational actors to prevail here in terms of our trying to gauge what they're going to do next is difficult, but I really hope that we will avoid any limited nuclear war or a strike in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. That's Nancy Snow in Tokyo.